Good morning, I'm Terry. Welcome to TARDIS Spider. We're going to look at Season 18 of Doctor Who. We're going to see who the villains were. Now, if you enjoy this video, please like and subscribe. And now, the villains from Season 18 in Doctor Who. The 1980s in Doctor Who cover 50 stories, depending on how you count Trial of a Time Lord, and cover the era from 1980 to the end of the show, from Tom Baker to Sylvester McCoy. So we're going to take a closer look at the 1980s for the rest of this year. So let's start with the villains of 1980 or Season 18. Doctor Who would open the 1980s with the story The Leisure Hive. The chief villain of this adventure was Pangol, child of the generator. No Argolan had been born on Argolis for over 40 years, the result of a 20-minute-long all-out nuclear war which rendered the planet sterile. However, visitors to the hive began to wonder where the young son of the chairman had come from. He could be no more than 20 years old. Pangol revealed himself as the first of the new Argolans, a child manufactured by the Tachyon recreation generator. Pangol had spent his youth developing into a thoroughly proficient Tachyon engineer, but his aim was not to improve the recreation of the Tharries, but to establish a cloning system whereby he could create an army of Pangols and wreak vengeance on the Fomasi. This was failed by some rewiring on the part of the Doctor, and as Pangol's army faded from existence, he was reduced in age to that of a baby. Mena, his mother, promised to bring him up better next time. In the story Megalos, we will meet the last of the surviving Zolfathurons. Megalos was also keen on interplanetary warfare. His then-extinct species had always despised their nearest neighbors, the Tygellans, and once reawoken, Megalos decided to resume hostilities. Normally a cactus, a xenophyte to be precise, he could take on any form and assume the identities of a gibbering London businessman and the Fourth Doctor in his mission to steal the mega-powerful dodecahedron from Tygella. He turned out to be another in the long line of megalomaniacs, and needless to say, this prickly character soon fell foul of his own plans when they backfired. The story that opens the E-Space trilogy, Full Circle, truly has no villain. Both the spiders and the Mars creatures are what happens during the evolutionary cycle on this planet. So while there are no villains in this story, in our household there is a crime. Adric joins the crew. In the next story, The State of Decay, the baleful presence of the three who rule had kept the local peasantry in a state of decay for 1,000 years, while the lords fed off the fat of the land. The peasants soon came to realize that the fat of the land did not refer to their agricultural efforts, but to the actual muscle, sinew, and rich blood they developed in the process. The lords were vampires, who sent out their guards regularly to gather helpings of the villagers and top up the massive blood vats. Lord Zargo, Lady Camilla, and Lord Akon were once humans who had arrived on the planet 1,000 years before, survivors of a spaceship crash, and the pawns of the great vampire, whom they had served ever since. The Doctor met the ancient enemy of the Time Lords in battle, foregoing all the traditional exorcisms in favor of a mighty bolt of steel, which he plunged into the great vampire's heart. The three lords withered and died in sympathy with their master, thus ending the planet's state of decay. In the final story of the E-Space trilogy, Warrior's Gate. In the void between this universe and the next, the Fourth Doctor encountered the sadistic Captain Rorvik. Rorvik's lot was not a happy one. His ship was marooned the striations of the timelines, and his cargo of time-sensitive Tharries was in jeopardy, and he was saddled with a crew of apathetic deadweights who seemed oblivious to their plight. Rorvik drifted over the edge of sanity, and the gun-wielding mercenary became big trouble for the Doctor, who had noticed that their mini-dimension was contracting rapidly. The Doctor and his team broke away, but Rorvik was left to rant and gurgle while the world fell in around him. The most famous and the most evil of all of the villains from Season 18 comes along in the two final stories of the year, Keeper of Traken and Logopolis. While imprisoned on Traken for several years, this had done little to temper the Master's malevolent streak. His immobility had served merely to distill his animosity. He had had ample time to consider the conquest of the Traken Union once his imprisonment had come to an end, and although he had not quite managed to hold on to the mantle of Keeper of Traken, he did amass sufficient power to consume Consular Tremus's body and escape the planet in pursuit of the Doctor. This new master surrendered much of his earlier charm and humor. He was now more psychotic and bitterly sought vengeance on the Doctor instead of concentrating on his former quest for power in the galaxy. His greatest achievement was in causing the death of the Fourth Doctor. This version of the Master, the intergalactic penguin, will haunt the Doctor throughout the 80s. Is it staying power or incurable dementia? The works of Baal's Dr. Sigmund Freud and Professor Ernsworth Garblos speak volumes on this one villain alone. The rebirth of the Master is the evil highlight from Season 18. This Master will haunt the Doctor until the very end of classic Doctor Who, though I must admit the rest of the villains in this season are very forgettable. And this week for a recommendation, let's turn back to YouTube. Please watch TARDIS Spider, but watch your favorite Doctor Who YouTubers. So enjoy your journey through time and space, and please never, ever forget, a child cannot have a favorite book. If they do not have one, give a child a book today.